Greetings. I'm Thomas Caldwell of the Aurelian Column, and this is Movie Night. The horror genre of movies is probably as old as movies themselves. If you think about it, some of the oldest silent films that we have are things like Frankenstein and Dracula and other such things that were about frightening you and touching that thing in the back of your head, whatever it is that makes you terrified. Americans, especially, love a good roller coaster ride, and nothing is more of a roller coaster ride than a good horror movie. Now, sadly, in recent decades, horror movies have just become gross. I mean, a lot of gore, blood, and stuff like that at one time would have been illegal. Yet, those are not the movies that are the most terrifying. Anyone who's a fan of the works of H.P. Lovecraft know that the most terrifying stories are the ones that call on your imagination, because your imagination is far more detailed and far more elaborate and has much better special effects than anything Hollywood could ever produce. But a horror movie is not necessarily about something that is immediately threatening to your person. It could be what's threatening to your civilization. The movie we're going to talk about today came out on November 4th, 1988, which was Election Day in the United States. That was the date George Bush I was elected president. The person who was behind this is a man who was famous for horror movies, John Carpenter. The movie I'm talking about is called They Live. Now, this is a popular movie. At least some of the lines out of it. You know the guy that you see standing with a shotgun in the bank saying, "I'm here to kick ass and chew bubble gum, and I'm all out of bubble gum"? Well, that's what this movie's about. Now, the movie is set at a time when the United States was really into making money. The 1980s was all about material wealth. It was all about career, becoming a yuppie, and all that other fun stuff, making plenty of money and complete deregulation, which sadly we ended up paying for a great deal later. All the interstate banking laws were dissolved back in the 1980s. That was a bad idea, which might fly in the face of so many people that call themselves conservative. There was too much that was done back then. The beginning of our manufacturing base to be exported. There were a lot of things about the Reagan years that were not good, even if you liked Reagan. The movie's about a drifter, a man who's had a bad toss of the dice when it came to how life dealt with him. And he makes the discovery that the elite, the greedies, the people who are behind all of the woes of society are actually extraterrestrials. And with a pair of sunglasses that he was able to find accidentally in a movement underground dedicated to fight them, he was able to see them. And when you have the sunglasses on and you can finally see what's really going on, when you've woken up, as we like to say, well, that's when everything changes and you realize that we're at war. Now, John Carpenter is still alive. He's quite old at this point, but he's pointed out that the whole point of this movie was to attack the elite that run our world. And in recent times, he has said the movie is more relevant now than it was nearly 40 years ago. I'm not going to reveal the plot of it too much, only that this man ends up leading a rebellion of sorts and people begin to wake up. But the fact is, what the movie's about is actually more horrifying because it's more real than we like to imagine. Now, I don't believe that the people at the top are all lizards or from extraterrestrial civilizations. If they were, they'd probably be doing a better job of running things, if you think about it. But it's that there are people at the top who are driven by greed, they're driven by ambition, they're driven by things that the average person is not motivated by, and that's what can be really horrifying. The people at the head of our affairs don't relate to what we find important. It's not that gory a movie, especially by John Carpenter standards. It was a rather fun production, too, I understand. By the way, that famous bubblegum line was completely ad-libbed by the star of the movie, Roddy Piper, who played the role. He was actually a professional wrestler, which is why he had that sort of physique. Another person who was starring in this movie was a very popular actress at the time, Meg Foster. She had these mesmerizing eyes. She became famous in a television production of The Scarlet Letter some years earlier, and I don't know what happened to her. Maybe she's still around, but she had this mesmerizing look, which was very unworldly, was almost extraterrestrial by itself. It's a fun movie. It's not that dated, although computers depicted in it are obviously dated. But it's something that we need to contemplate because real horror is about things that we need to face, not things we need to avoid. And given the state of the world right now, and given the exponential problems that we have compared to back then, maybe it's time we enjoy a good movie and maybe learn from it the way we were supposed to learn from it way back when, but many of us didn't bother to do so. And we have the world surrounding us now as a result. Again, the movie is They Live, directed by legendary horror master John Carpenter, starring Roddy Piper, Keith David, and Meg Foster. It was released in 1988 on Election Day, and it was distributed by Universal Pictures. You can find it in the usual places. You really can't find it for free. It's not one of the free things you find on YouTube. Some places it's been posted online in copyright violation, which is not really fair to Mr. Carpenter since he put so much work into this, and artists do have to have their works protected, but you can pay for it here and there. It's not much. It is one of those things to probably have on a DVD, because at some point movies like this might become illegal, so you might be down in the bunker watching it as you take a break from making sunglasses. That's it for today. If you appreciate my work, please like, subscribe, and share. Share with your friends and share with your enemies because they have to see what the sunglasses show as well. And also, please, please, please consider a paid subscription or a donation. It keeps the lights on literally and figuratively, and the price of electricity these days, that's something to consider. I can be reached at feedback@aureliancolumn.com. That's feedback@aureliancolumn.com. I'm up on X. My handle there is MICCAMPEN. That's MICCAMPEN. This podcast originates at Substack. My handle there is aureliancolumn.substack.com. Until we meet again, be good, be safe, be vigilant, and remember, don't forget the popcorn, and read the credits through to the end. Good day.